Here's a question nobody in the gardening world seems willing to ask out loud. What if the advice you have been following your entire gardening life was only half the truth? Think about it. Every book, every channel, every expert who has ever glanced at your yard and pointed at the sunny patch and said, "That is where the fruit trees go. 6 to 8 hours of direct sun, minimum. Non-negotiable. End of discussion." And so you listened. You gave your best light to the trees everyone told you to grow, and those other spaces, the north-facing wall, the shaded patio, the corner the sun never quite reaches, you filled them with ferns, or ornamental shrubs, or nothing at all. Because nothing edible grows in the shade, right? Wrong. Not slightly wrong. Fundamentally, completely, categorically wrong. There is an entire world of fruiting trees and shrubs that were never designed for open fields or bright orchards. They evolved underneath the canopy, beneath towering rainforest trees, on the shaded floors of ancient woodlands, in cool, filtered, dappled light, where most gardeners never think to look. And here is the part that changes everything. They do not just survive in shade, they need it. They resent harsh, direct sun. They thrive precisely where you assumed nothing could. And the fruit they produce? I want you to set aside every flavor you have ever tasted from a grocery store shelf because what these trees carry has no comparison there. We are talking about fruit so rare, so complex in flavor, so visually extraordinary that your neighbors will stop and stare and ask you what on earth you are growing. And every single one of these 9 plants can live and fruit abundantly in a container. No garden required. A patio, a balcony, a shaded courtyard. That is enough. Let's begin number 9, Che fruit. The mulberry nobody talks about, also known as Chinese mulberry or Cudrania tricuspidata, looks like someone crossed a mulberry with a raspberry, then dipped the result in deep burgundy paint. It is one of the most underappreciated fruiting trees in temperate horticulture, and almost no one outside specialist plant circles has tasted it. The fruit is round, roughly the size of a large marble, and ripens to a rich, deep red purple. Bite into one, and you get something that sits between a fig, a mulberry, and a sweet watermelon, mild, perfumed, and almost honey-like with a subtle earthiness underneath. There's nothing quite like it on a supermarket shelf because it does not travel, does not store long, and does not scale for commercial production. That is precisely why growing your own is so rewarding. In its native habitat across China, Korea, and Japan, Che grows naturally as a woodland edge and understory tree. It is genuinely comfortable in partial to moderate shade, and does not demand the intense sun exposure that most fruit trees require. The foliage stays lush and productive even in filtered light, which makes it an ideal candidate for spots under larger trees or against shaded walls. USDA zones 5 through 9, making it one of the most cold-hardy options on this list. Container size, a 20 to 25 gallon pot for mature production. Well-draining, loamy mix at a neutral to slightly acidic pH between 6.0 and 7.0. While moderate water, it is reasonably drought-tolerant once established, which makes it forgiving for container growers. Plant a male and female for reliable fruiting, though some sources report occasional parthenocarpic fruit set from the female alone. Bonus fact: Qi fruit has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for centuries, with the roots, bark, and fruit all appearing in historical texts for their astringent and anti-inflammatory properties. Modern phytochemical research has confirmed the presence of flavonoids and stilbene compounds in the fruit with antioxidant activity. You are not just growing something beautiful and rare. You are growing something with a medicinal legacy stretching back 2,000 years. Number 8, serviceberry. 3 seasons of glory. 1 container service. Berry, Amelanchier canadensis, or the compact Saskatoon varieties, might be the most underutilized native fruit tree in North America. It delivers 3 distinct seasons of visual drama and a harvest of fruit that tastes like a blueberry had a sophisticated encounter with a toasted almond. The berries are small, round, and ripen from green to rose to deep blue-purple. They are juicy and sweet, with a nutty undertone that sets them apart from every other small berry. Eaten fresh, they are exceptional. In jams, baked goods, or fermented into wine, they are extraordinary. The flavor deepens and becomes almost marzipan-like when fully sun-ripened, though interestingly, partial shade improves fruit quality in hotter climates by slowing the ripening and concentrating sugars. His serviceberry naturally grows along forest edges and beneath the partial canopy of mixed woodlands across North America. It is not a deep shade plant, but it handles partial shade with ease. And in zones 7 and above, afternoon shade is actively beneficial, preventing fruit from drying and improving overall berry quality. USDA zones 2 through 9, one of the widest cold hardiness ranges on this list. Container size, 15 to 20 gallons for the compact Regent or Honeywood cultivars, both of which stay between 4 and 6 feet. Standard well-draining potting mix, moderate water, relatively low maintenance once established. Self-fertile in most cultivars, so a single plant will produce. Bonus fact: serviceberries were a staple food for indigenous peoples across the entire continent, eaten fresh, sun-dried, and pressed into pemmican, which served as a critical high-calorie survival food for centuries. The berries are rich in manganese, iron, and antioxidant compounds. This is one of the most historically significant edible plants in North American horticulture, and most gardeners walk straight past it at the nursery without a second glance. Number 7. Lingenberry. The boreal superfruit in a small pot lingenberry, Vaccinium vitis idea, is technically a low-growing evergreen shrub, but it earns its place on this list without question. It is one of the most shade-tolerant edible plants on the planet. It fruits twice a year, it stays evergreen through winter, and its berries carry a nutritional density that rivals almost anything in the temperate world. The berries are small, bright red, and fiercely tart, closer to a cranberry than a blueberry, but with a more complex, acidic brightness that cuts through rich food like a blade. In Scandinavia, lingonberry sauce is as fundamental to the table as ketchup is in America. It is stirred into game dishes, spooned over pancakes, swirled through yogurt, and pressed into a juice that is consumed throughout the Nordic winter as an immune staple. Lingenberry is a boreal forest floor plant. It grows natively under the dense canopy of spruce and pine forests across Scandinavia, northern Russia, Canada, and the northern United States, where direct sun is filtered through layers of needle canopy above. Partial to full shade is not a compromise for this plant. It is home. USDA zones 2 through 7. This is your cold climate shade champion. Compact habit, usually under 12 inches tall, making it perfect for smaller containers or as a layered ground cover beneath Wrocław's taller container trees. Acidic, well-draining soil, pH 4.5 to 5.5, consistent moisture. Because it stays small, a 10 to 15 gallon container is generous for a mature plant. Bonus fact: lingonberry produces 2 full harvests per year in most climates, spring and fall, which doubles your window compared to most single-crop fruit plants. Its antioxidant and vitamin C content is exceptional, and it has been studied extensively in Scandinavian research institutions for anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and cardiovascular benefits. As a year-round evergreen, it also provides visual interest in your container garden even in the depths of winter when everything else has gone dormant. Number 6, Haskap/honeyberry, the indestructible berry from Siberia. Haskap, Lonicera caerulea, was bred and selected in some of the harshest growing environments on Earth: Siberia, the Russian Far East, northern Japan, When horticulturalists talk about cold hardiness in this plant, they mean flowering buds that survive down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit, and in some advanced cultivars, down to -13. This plant is not merely cold tolerant, it was forged in cold. The berries are elongated and deep blue-purple, with a dusty wax bloom on the skin. They look like a blueberry that decided to grow up and get serious. The flavor is more intense, more complex, a rich blueberry base layered with tart elderberry notes and, depending on the cultivar, a subtle hint of black currant. Borealis is sweeter and rounded. Way indigo, gem is more tart and aromatic. Plant them together because you want both, and because cross-pollination dramatically increases yields from either. Haskap evolved in boreal and subalpine environments where the growing season is short, cloud cover is frequent, and direct sun is rarely intense. Partial shade is not only tolerated, in warmer zones it actively improves fruit quality by keeping the plant cooler and reducing stress during flowering. Container growing in partial shade means the root zone stays at a moderate temperature, which is precisely what this plant prefers. USDA zones 3 through 7. Container size, 15 to 25 gallons for mature production. Slightly acidic, well-draining soil, regular moisture. Plant at least 2 compatible cultivars for cross-pollination and meaningful yield. Siege region and Borealis are reliable compact choices that stay under 4 to 5 feet. Bonus fact: the anthocyanin content in Haskap berries is among the highest measured in any commercially cultivated edible berry, significantly exceeding blueberries and most other temperate fruits per gram of fresh weight. These compounds have been studied in peer-reviewed research for cardiovascular benefits, anti-inflammatory properties, and cognitive support. And Haskap ripens earlier than virtually every other fruiting plant, sometimes in late May or early June, well before strawberries or blueberries are even close to harvest. Fresh fruit weeks before anyone else on the street. That is a serious advantage. Number 5. Feijoa, pineapple guava. The cold, hardy tropical that fooled everyone. Feijoa, Aca Celowiana, commits what feels like botanical fraud. It produces fruit with a flavor so completely tropical, so alive with the combined essence of pineapple, guava, and fresh mint with a floral finish that tasting it for the first time feels like being briefly transported somewhere closer to the equator. And yet this plant is native to the cool, often overcast highlands of southern Brazil and Uruguay. It handles frost, it tolerates partial shade, it grows happily in a large pot on a temperate patio. It is the cold, hardy tropical that nobody told you about. The fruit is oval, green-skinned, and unassuming on the outside, the kind of fruit you might walk past at a market without a second glance. Cut it open, and the flesh is cream-colored, a granular near the seed, smooth and jelly-like at the center, and the aroma that rises is extraordinary. The flowers are edible too. Thick, fleshy petals with a sweet tropical flavor you can pull straight from the blossom and drop into a salad. Feijoa evolved in regions of southern South America where highland cloud cover is frequent, and intense afternoon sun is the exception, not the rule. It handles partial shade well at any zone, and in zones 9 and above, afternoon shade is actively recommended to prevent fruit from drying and to extend the harvest window. USDA zones 8 through 11, with some cultivars pushing into zone 7 with protection. Container size, 15 to 20 gallons for mature, productive plants. Well-draining mix, moderate water. Drought tolerant once established, one of the most forgiving container specimens on this list. You choose self-fertile cultivars like Coolidge, Mammoth, or Apollo, so a single plant produces fruit without a companion. Bonus fact: Feijoa is one of the most nutrient-dense subtropical fruits available to temperate gardeners. With significant levels of iodine, a mineral rarely found in meaningful quantities in fruit, alongside vitamin C, folate, and a range of antioxidant polyphenols. In New Zealand, where it was introduced and enthusiastically adopted, it is now a cultural staple with an almost devotional following. In most of the Northern Hemisphere, you can grow it on a patio, and your neighbors will have no idea what it is. Number 4. Miracle fruit. The berry that bends reality. Miracle fruit. Syncypalum dulcificum. Does something that sounds like science fiction until you experience it personally? You eat a small red berry, you hold it on your tongue for 30 seconds, and for the next hour, everything sour tastes sweet. Lemons taste like lemonade. Plain yogurt tastes like cheesecake. Hot sauce becomes a sweet condiment. A glycoprotein called miraculin binds to your taste receptors and transforms your perception of sourness completely. This is not metaphor. This is real, documented, peer-reviewed botany. The berry itself is modest. Small, red, oval, about the size of a large cranberry. The flavor when eaten alone is mildly sweet and unremarkable. But that is entirely beside the point. The experience of miracle fruit that is not in the berry itself. It is in everything that comes after. For the home gardener, having a living plant that produces this fruit on demand is one of the most extraordinary culinary possessions imaginable. Miracle fruit is a tropical understory plant, native to the dense rainforests of West Africa, from Ghana through to the Congo. In its natural habitat, it grows beneath the closed canopy where direct sunlight rarely penetrates to the ground. It genuinely prefers partial to filtered shade, and in high-heat climates, direct afternoon sun causes leaf scorch and suppresses fruit production. USDA zones 9 through 11 for outdoor growing. A brilliant container and houseplant candidate in all colder zones. Bring indoors when temperatures fall below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Container size, 5 to 10 gallons is sufficient given its naturally compact, slow-growing habit, typically under 5 feet. Acidic, well-draining mix, pH 4.5 to 5.5, consistent moisture and warmth. Feed with an acid-formulated fertilizer during the growing season. Bonus fact: miracle fruit has been the subject of genuine medical research as a tool for cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy, who frequently experience metallic taste disturbances that make eating unpleasant or impossible. By altering taste perception, the berry can make food palatable again for patients who have lost the ability to enjoy eating, a side effect of treatment that contributes to malnutrition and reduced quality of life. This is not a party trick. It is a plant with real therapeutic interest that you can grow on a windowsill. Cornelian cherry. 5,000 years of history in a container. Cornelian cherry, Cornus mas, may be the single most underappreciated fruiting tree in all of temperate horticulture. It is not a true cherry. It is a member of the dogwood family. But the fruit it produces, shiny, elongated, vivid red to deep burgundy, bursting with a tart complexity that falls somewhere between sour cherry and cranberry, with an almost wine-like depth when fully ripe, is one of the finest edible offerings from any woody plant in the temperate world. It has been cultivated and eaten for over 5,000 years. Ancient Rome knew about it, and most North American gardeners have never grown it. The fruit is beautiful, vivid crimson when young, deepening to burgundy red at full ripeness. It hangs in clusters like jewels against dark green foliage. The flesh is firm, the stone central and easy to navigate around, and the flavor when fully ripe is deeply satisfying. A long, complex tartness that finishes with something warm and almost vinous, made into jam, cordial, or the traditional sherbet of Central Asia. It is extraordinary. Eaten fresh from the branch on a warm September afternoon, it is even better. Cornelian cherry grows naturally as an understory tree in the mixed woodlands of Eastern Europe and Western Asia, beneath oaks, hornbeams, and other large canopy trees where direct sunlight is filtered and dappled. Partial to moderate shade, suits it perfectly, and it is one of the most genuinely woodland-adapted fruiting trees available to temperate gardeners. USDA zones 4 through 8, wide cold hardiness with excellent adaptability. The container size tends 20 to 30 gallons for named cultivars. Standard well-draining mix, moderate water, relatively drought-tolerant once established. Look for named cultivars such as Jolico, Pioneer, or Elegant, which have been selected for significantly larger and sweeter fruit than wild types. It blooms in late winter, sometimes February, producing tiny golden yellow flowers before any leaves emerge, making it one of the earliest nectar sources for pollinators in the entire year. Bonus fact: Cornelian cherry fruit has one of the highest vitamin C contents of any temperate fruit, well exceeding citrus in many measurements. Beyond vitamin C, the fruit contains iridoid glycosides, compounds studied for anti-diabetic and anti-obesity properties, and a dense array of anthocyanins and polyphenolic acids. And it has been used in folk medicine across Eurasia for centuries as an immune-supportive, astringent, anti-inflammatory food. In Turkey and the Caucasus region, it remains in active daily culinary use. You are growing a 5,000-year-old medicine cabinet in a pot. Number 2. Jaboticaba. The tree that fruits from its own bark, Jaboticaba. Plinia cauliflora is the tree that stops people mid-sentence. Not because of anything it does that you can predict, but because the first time you see it fruiting, your brain refuses to accept it. The fruit does not grow on the branches. It erupts directly from the trunk, from the main stems, from the bark itself. Dark, grape-like berries, clustered so densely that they appear almost painted on, covering the wood in a cascade of deep purple. It looks fabricated, like a prop. Like someone glued fruit onto a tree as an elaborate joke. They did not. That is simply what Jaboticaba does. The berries are round, grape-sized, and dark purple-black when fully ripe. The skin is thick and slightly tannic. It pops satisfyingly when you bite down. The flesh inside is sweet, gelatinous, pale, and translucent, with a flavor that marries grape and lychee and adds something uniquely its own. Tropical, floral, faintly resinous. In Brazil, where it grows natively throughout the Atlantic forest, Jaboticaba is consumed fresh, pressed into wine, fermented into liqueur, and cooked into jams that are considered among the finest fruit preserves in South American cuisine. Jaboticaba is a true forest understory tree. In its native Atlantic forest habitat, it grows slowly and patiently beneath the canopy, and accustomed to filtered light and consistent moisture. Partial to moderate shade is not just tolerated. It mirrors exactly the conditions where this tree evolved. Its slow growth rate, which in the wild can mean only inches of growth per year, is what makes it one of the most container-friendly fruiting trees in the world. USDA Zones 9B through 11 for outdoor planting. Zone 9A with protection. But here is the extraordinary thing about Jaboticaba. Because it grows so slowly and stays so compact for so long, growers in Zones 5 and 6 successfully keep mature, fruiting trees indoors as houseplants near south-facing windows. Container size, 15 to 25 gallons. Acidic, well-draining soil, consistent moisture, protection from frost. Feed regularly with a balanced fertilizer through the growing season. Bonus fact: the skin of Jaboticaba berries has been identified as exceptionally rich in anthocyanins and other polyphenolic compounds, with antioxidant activity that rivals blueberry on an ounce-for-ounce basis. In Brazilian folk medicine, the dried skin has been used as a treatment for inflammatory bowel conditions and hemoptysis for generations. Contemporary phytochemical research has validated these traditional uses. You are not just growing one of the most visually spectacular fruit trees in the world. You are growing one of the most nutritionally dense. Number 1. Pawpaw. The custard fruit of the American forest pawpaw. Asimina triloba, the largest edible fruit, native to North America, and the single most astonishing example of everything this video has been building toward. Yacholent, because here's the thing about pawpaw that most gardeners, even experienced ones, cannot reconcile when they first hear it. The flavor of this fruit is tropical, legitimately, unmistakably tropical. Dense, custardy, richly sweet with notes of banana, mango, vanilla, and a finish that some describe as papaya or soursop. It tastes like something from a market stall in a warm country, and pawpaw grows, natively without any intervention, in the deep shaded understory of forests across the American Midwest and eastern seaboard. It is cold hardy to USDA Zone 5. Some selections push into Zone 4, a fruit that tastes like the tropics, grown in a pot, in the shade, through a North American winter. Let that settle. The fruit is large, often the size of a mango or larger, with green skin that yellows and softens at full ripeness. Inside, the flesh is soft, custardy, and deep yellow-orange, clinging around large brown seeds in a smooth, almost pudding-like texture. The aroma when fully ripe is heady and tropical, unmistakable. There is no temperate fruit that prepares you for it. The flavor has been called a cross between banana, mango, and cherry moya, but those comparisons only get you so far. Pawpaw is its own thing entirely, and once you taste it, you will understand why Lewis and Clark relied on it as a survival food on their westward expedition, and why Thomas Jefferson grew it at Monticello. Pawpaw evolved specifically as a forest understory tree. It grows in the natural shade of oaks, maples, and tulip poplars throughout eastern North America, forming dense colonies on shaded riverbanks and forest floors. Young pawpaw trees actively require shade. In their first 2 to 3 years, they struggle and can fail in full, unfiltered sun. Even mature trees never demand the intensity of direct light that most fruit trees need. This is a plant that was born in the shadows, and it performs accordingly. USDA zones 5 through 8, with careful site selection potentially extending to zone 4. Container size, 30 to 35 gallon pots minimum for mature, producing plants. Go deep rather than wide, as pawpaw develops a significant taproot. Well-draining, slightly acidic soil. Consistent moisture is critical. Pawpaw does not tolerate drought, especially while young. Plant 2 different named cultivars for cross-pollination. Sunflower and Allegheny are excellent container choices, selected for compact habit, earlier bearing, and superior fruit quality. Given a critical note on pollination, pawpaw flowers are pollinated by flies and beetles, not bees. Hand pollination with a small artist's paintbrush, transferring pollen between the 2 cultivars when flowers are open, is a 5-minute task that dramatically increases fruit set. Bonus fact: pawpaw contains acetogenins, a class of bioactive compounds found in the Annanaceae family, of which Asamina triloba is the only cold-hardy temperate member, that have been studied extensively in cancer research for their cytotoxic activity against certain tumor cell lines in laboratory settings. The leaves and bark contain the highest concentrations, and the fruit pulp carries measurable amounts as well. We are not making medical claims. We are saying that pawpaw is a phytochemically remarkable plant that goes far beyond flavor, and practically the same compounds that make it scientifically interesting that also make it almost completely unattractive to deer, insects, and other garden pests. Zero pest pressure. A productive, exotic-tasting, wildlife-resistant, shade-loving, cold-hardy fruit tree that thrives in a container. The question is not why you should grow it. The question is why you have waited this long. 9 fruit trees, 9 reasons to look at every shady corner of your space and see possibility instead of limitation. Now I want you to do something specific before you close this video. Look around your space. Find the corner that gets too little sun, the patch of shade you dismissed, the spot you mentally labeled as dead space, because it is not dead. It never was. It was just waiting for the right knowledge and the right plant. Yeah, that space is not a limitation. It is your next container garden? Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and go find that shady corner. It has been waiting for you all along.